I think the best advice is, almost to tune it out and to just be as honest as you can when you're actually singing something and make it personal, and people will start paying attention.
It's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you showing interest.
Yeah, your music is wonderful. Your voice is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And I love that you also have a band, and you're a soul singer.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I certainly am influenced by soul singers, but also singers of the classic rock era and even jazz, like Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday. So right now the music is feeling a little Americana soul, I guess, but it really just crosses through a lot of genres.
But I think your voice also leans itself very well to that genres.
Yeah, I think so too. It's where I feel most comfortable, and I think in a journey as an artist, you try out a lot of things, and eventually you stop trying and you just find what feels natural, and that's the best, most comfortable place to be.
Yeah, and it probably also evolves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew what I know now.
Okay.
Yeah. But everybody says that's part of the journey. So I try not to I guess have regrets or compare where I was, because it's my own unique journey. And maybe in my eyes, sometimes I feel like it's taken me a while to get to my sound where I feel most authentic. But the journey is the beautiful part. So I try to appreciate that.
Yeah, I've also spoken to many artists who say this, that there has to be a first, and it has to be also then from there on building on that. But there has to be that first one or the first time, So I think that is very important, that we actually treasure the first, treasure the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, and the beginning is so exciting because there's so much unknown. It's all unknown. And as you go, you can start predicting maybe how things will come. So there's definitely beauty in the beginning. And I'm grateful for that.
But you're a New Yorker, so tell me, you grew up in New York?
I did. I grew up in New York City, so one of the 5 boroughs, which is Queens for me. So my family was born and raised in Queens and Manhattan, and they're all still there for the most part. And I was the lone traveler that came out west about 7 years ago now.
And do you miss the city? I mean, New York City?
For sure. Yeah, there's things I miss, but I left because I didn't feel like it was the most healthy place for me. I think being raised there and then working there, and I was commuting, and it felt really hard. It was a bit of a hustle, and it's also very congested. And I think there's always been a part of me that's been a nature girl. And as I began to visit the West Coast, more and more, it took me a while, but more and more it grew on me. And I thought I could have a healthier life, at least for me, out there, and still have the industry and a young community or a creative community around me in Los Angeles. It wasn't a huge shift, but I felt like it was easy and it was more beautiful. And I'm also a plant-based eater and a vegan. So much easier in LA than New York, believe it or not.
Okay. But now in New York, you studied as well. And also, first I want to ask, do you come from a musical family? Where did the singing start?
I know that my grandmother, I think, sang in chorus as a kid, but nobody pursued music that I'm aware of for generations, maybe further back. I know my mom always was a creative writer and a music lover for sure. I mean, my family listened to music nonstop. So the stereo was either going with Frank Sinatra or like Celine Dion and Aretha Franklin and, the big voices, but nobody pursued music. My sister's a fine artist, so there's certainly creative genes going through us. Yeah.
But what was it that made you start singing or discover your voice?
So for sure, my mom would play like all those big female voices while she was cleaning. I remember being young and hearing Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Celine Dion and Cher and Aretha Franklin and then Billie Holiday and Ella. And I just was gravitated towards lyric and melody and I'd imitate them. So I think that was like the beginning. And then I remember in my early adolescence, Jewel came out. And I remember maybe that was one of my first CDs. And I just remember, trying to sing like her. And I started writing poetry a lot. And eventually it just became a thing I did for fun as a kid. And I remember maybe one time my mom came in the room because she heard me, because I wouldn't do it in front of anyone, just with the door closed, I'd write and sing. And she said, "You have a really nice voice. You should keep doing that."
Really? Mm.
That's my biggest memory. Besides being a toddler with my first Sony cassette player that comes with a little plastic.
But then did you go to the art school?
So I did not pursue any music lessons. I started private voice lessons, I believe, in high school, maybe. But I was really unsure how to pursue like proper music education, and I wasn't going to a music school. I don't think my parents knew where to place me, and I didn't know. And also, I was a big social butterfly, and that was more important to me at the time. And I think it didn't hit me until I left high school and couldn't get into music schools because I didn't put in the time prior. So I went to a city college, Hunter College in Manhattan. I took a lot of music electives, anything I could, and I self-taught basic music theory and like piano, like keyboard stuff, chords, and eventually met musicians in Lower Manhattan, and they taught me things about performing live. I ultimately went back years later to get my music degree in my late 20s at City College of New York, which is the oldest public college in the nation in the United States. And it's a beautiful campus in West Harlem. And I studied jazz vocal performance there.
Okay. Yeah, so that is interesting that you say that by the time you finished high school, and then arts colleges or music colleges then usually take people who have already studied music in school. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel then was this a bit disheartening for you, or did it make you then try and think, hey, I'm going to do this anyway?
Yeah, I think it was probably a little bit of both. I'm sure I was somewhat disappointed, but to be honest, I think I remember being intimidated by that anyway, because I knew I was sort of just a self-taught, quiet bedroom singer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I was ready for that. I think I needed more confidence, and I think I was okay with obtaining that confidence just through experience. And I met a couple of mentors who were musicians that played live and that had already been recording artists. And that sort of began my own journey outside of academia. And then I realized I did appreciate people who had studied. And I mean, it's such a language and you never stop learning. So I think as I matured, I knew I wanted to bring that back in. And that's why I went back and got that degree.
And was it important for you then? Can you see that you had to do that? Can you see it now in the music compared to before, that this was very important to do?
Absolutely. However, I think you can learn a ton outside of school, and still the way I self-taught still sticks with me, like the things that I taught from the ABCs of music that I just read out of a book. That doesn't change. It's a language. So if you can't, spend the money on music school, there's teachers everywhere in every form. So I see the importance. I'm so happy I did it. I also made amazing friends and met amazing teachers. But I don't think it's an absolute necessity. I think you can find private teachers, you can watch videos. I think it just literally takes consistency. You have to keep at it, because even in school, the things you learn, you're not grasping, you're only still just digesting. It takes years for the things you learn to actually come to and feel like, whoa, now I get it.
Yeah. And that the time that you go on stage or that you perform, that's also something that I think it takes experience. And that's not something that they always can teach you in the school. It's getting out there and doing it. Yeah.
That's so. And one of our classes was performance, and I think that's the one where I excelled the most over the history and the theory, because I had done so many bar gigs, wedding gigs, private parties. Again, just doing something over and over, you become more comfortable, and the stressors kind of go away, and you can focus on emoting and just having a nice presence. So I would say to any musician, yes, you should study, you should do the scales, and you should do the warm-ups, and you should play the repertoire, the famous repertoire that everybody learns. You should also just go out and live perform. And that's such a great experience and a great lesson.
Yeah, I think it's also sometimes you see the side that's already been developed, or the artist that's already had all this experience and performing, but you don't always realize that it started there. Like you say, it started maybe in a small bar, or it started with a wedding or something like that, and it's these continuous small little things that build up to where you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that makes everybody unique. Maybe someone started as a kid and taking private lessons, and they were already, so advanced by the time they were in high school, or maybe someone started by accident, and just had a natural gift. So I think it's pretty fascinating, and definitely your experiences will shape you. I do like that I came from more of a live background. It's the most fun for me, but it did make recording challenging because it was where I was least experienced. It's very different to go into a sound isolated booth and put on a show for the microphone that's going to be imprinted and heard as many times as possible by anyone, as opposed to that one time that you sing it in front of people live. It's very different. So yeah. I'm improving on the recording side because I spent so long avoiding it and just doing the live music.
Well, it's during lockdown time, I spoke to a lot of artists as well, and I really didn't realize how much the audience, the energy from the audience is also so important for the artist. And now I can imagine when you say, when you're standing in front of a microphone and there's no audience, then you really have to work it and really have to do it, to get that same feeling and expression into your music.
Yeah. Even if the audience isn't, I played many bar gigs, even if they're not paying attention and they're looking at the TV, just knowing somebody's there and you can make an impression in that moment. I think the best advice is, almost to tune it out and to just be as honest as you can when you're actually singing something and make it personal, and people will start paying attention. You certainly don't have to, beg them to listen. I think even the most subtle quiet dynamic. If it's truly heartfelt, you start to people listen, and some people won't listen, and not everybody will like you. And that's something I learned. You can't worry about people pleasing. I mean, not everybody loved the Beatles, and they were, you know, one of the greatest bands and writers. So
Yeah.
you just have to do you. And I think if you're doing it for you and you come from a positive place and say, hey, I want to make a positive impact, that shines through, and that energy kind of gravitates people to listen and kind of open up to you.
Yeah, that's really true, and it's coming from you. Then also, it could reach then a person, you know, that or reach the people and touch. I think so too. I believe that really. But now, tell me about your band.
So my band right now, I met them all but one player out here in LA. My guitarist, Will, I actually met back in New York. He was a New Yorker for about 15 years, originally from Texas. And he played weddings with me and original gigs back in my 20s. So he just moved out here. So he's sort of the cherry on top now, because we go back summers, and he's seen the journey and I've seen his journey. And he's actually a Grammy awarded mixer, which is amazing. So I have this great musician who's also helping me mix music as we go and mix live shows. Nathaniel Lagutz is the drummer, and he's the heartbeat of the band. He's fabulous, and he's a working musician, very busy. Lauren Stockner, she is our girl bass player, and actually purposely wanted to build more women into the band. Barbara Laranga is a trumpet player. Ellen Shinogle, another female musician, trumpet player. And Max Nasik on keys. He's really young and really soulful on keys. I love when he plays organ. So that's the band. And yeah, so there's 4 girls. When we do it full band with the 2 trumpets, there's 4 girls and 3 boys. So we outnumber the men, which is not common.
No, but I saw the trumpets, and that was also fascinating for me, because I think this almost this has to be with the type of music you sing. It gives us this very 1930s feel for me.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. For me,
yeah.
I always wanted to add a new element. And it was partially thinking about the live show dynamic and what could bring some brilliance and extra energy. And also, I think really there's some Van Morrison songs that have horns on them, and I am a big Van Morrison fan. And I remember putting down "In My Soul" on the Full Cup record, and after the fact being like, we need horns. And now it just opens up a can of worms, and I want them at every show and on every song. So there's even horns playing on the songs that don't have horns, but at the live show we've added parts so that the horns could play on most of the set. Yeah.
I love that. I think this is amazing, especially because it's unusual. Sure. I mean, I didn't even know it wasn't in the music of Van Morrison, but I love that it's a bit unusual, but lovely sound. I mean, it goes very well with what you're doing, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You probably know the song "Into the Mystic," but there's this famous horn line at the end, and I really think that influenced me a lot from Van Morrison. He's got some beautiful lines in there.
But now, how important is this band that you get together? I mean, you're the solo singer, and how do you work together? Is this a creative input, or are they also involved in other bands?
Yeah. They're all full-time musicians. That's all they do is play, both studio and on stage gigs. And Will, like I said, mixes mainly. In terms of their input, for sure, we're always arranging on the fly. I'm writing the songs in full, like lyrically and melody, and then we'll come into rehearsal and I'll be like, let's work on the groove here, because I don't have all of that in my head. It's a lot sometimes to imagine. I might have an example of another song, but I'm so focused on delivering the vocal and the melody and getting the harmonies in there that the band really helps. Like, oh, let's swing the groove, or let's do it straight, or let's add hits here, and they come up with the lines really. So we have some new songs right now that we're just exercising at live gigs, and we're developing them together, which is really nice.
Wow, this is amazing, because now it's also this this collaboration then, from the different music, the different instruments. It's not that
Right.
just also the different musicians, and I think this is amazing.
Yeah, and I want them to have fun and put their mark on it. That's what makes the band so special.
You stand out really you stood out on Instagram when I first saw you. I thought, wow, this is interesting what you're doing, and even your style, the way you dress and so on. So I think it's a wonderful combination that you have there.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate.
Yeah. But now, tell me, what are your wishes for the future?
Right now, I'm really working on applying and getting us into larger festivals. So bigger performance spaces. We've been locally in LA doing all the original venues, and that's great. And we're, like I said, always improving on the set and the songs. But I want to, of course, like any artist, I want to reach more people. So live is, near and dear to me. So if we could do that, even if we came to Europe, and we did some music festivals. So I'm sort of gathering a list. Have to apply early. And a big part of what I do at the gigs is record everything so that I can have some sort of portfolio so bookers can see. So definitely on the lookout for a booking agent, or just to independently get involved in festivals for sure. And recording our next batch of songs, probably another EP, maybe another 6 song, where we all go in together and primarily record live, and maybe just overdub a few things.
Well, come to Vienna and come do a show
I would love
here.
that.
Yeah.
Tell me who to reach out to. I will do it.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But now, and now I've got one more thing to ask you. Can you do a shout out for a restaurant or a coffee shop in your area? Where do you go? What is your local?
I'm really lucky because there's 3 amazing ones like minutes away. But I will say Sachi is an amazing Los Angeles coffee shop, plant shop, and thrift clothing shop. And they also host music as well. 2 Japanese American twin sisters, Sachi, which means happiness, and Chio, have really started something super special, and I've actually performed there in the acoustic duo form. So shout out to Sachi.
Wow. So it's a little venue where you can also perform then.
They do. You just have to plan it with them. They have a back patio with a lot of seating, and you bring the PA system. And then inside, it's just a really beautiful sort of gift shop, plant shop, clothing shop. There's even a record store attached. So they love music and art as well.
Wow. I'm going to put their link in the description of this video, of the interview. Yeah, definitely. But now, Juliana, this was so lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciated it. I appreciate your interest and your love for, the arts and creativity and the journeys of others. That's really beautiful. And I think you do a great job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's lovely to see, people like you who are so creative and bring all these wonderful music out in the world. That's wonderful. But I'm sure I'm going to see you in Vienna soon.
I hope so. Let's keep in touch. I also love your shirt. I have about like 10 different blue button-down shirts. It's like my
Really?
favorite to wear.
I love
it.
these.
Looks great.
Oh, no, I love these. Blue is also my color. I love it. Yeah. We seem to be color coordinated, you and I. This is great. But
Thank you.
Juliana, have a lovely afternoon.
Too.
And let me know when you're in Vienna and we'll grab a coffee.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Bye.